Oh, what? Did you think I wouldn't join this party? PPL, I'm here. What's up, everybody? It is your boy, Thriller, aka Thriller. I don't know why I did that. I had something else going on there. But what is up, guys? It's your boy Thriller here, and we're here to do the PPL Power Rankings. Now, before we get into this, I need to preference a couple of things. One, PPL did not ask me to do the Power Rankings. I am doing these Power Rankings out of my own free choice because honestly I've been enjoying doing the work for BBR and for some really big leagues out there. I would love to help out in any way and spread out some of the messages about the start of the season and also kind of get the hype for this season for the league itself. I'm sorry I yawn a lot. I can sound. I mean, I don't. It actually cuts off now for now. I guess you don't see what time it is for me, but it's actually almost 7 in the morning for me, so I'm very tired. But I did these all last night. I spent about an hour and a half to 2 hours ranking these teams, and then having to take the same ranked teams, organize it, nice and neatly until we have the rankings properly done. And these rankings might surprisingly shock you, but they also may not shock you within time. So I'm very excited though for this season. It is 20 coaches in this roster, which I think is really, really cool. 20 of the best coaches in here. They're going to be split into two divisions though, but the draft was done with one drafting pool. So this is a very much more interesting team. And I think a lot of people walked away with some really great teams. Obviously, these rankings don't reflect on what I think a coach can do, reflect on how their season's going to go. I think there's a lot of great ways you can still win a draft league, even with having a team that might be considered potentially worse. But people want to see what these teams I could think of with rank and stuff like that. So if you are guys are excited for this, please leave a like if you haven't already subscribed, you're new. But also make sure you check out the PPL. I will leave a link to the PPL's main channel, as I think occasionally they'll probably be trying to do some maybe some coach interviews, some other rankings from themselves, like well from week to week rankings. I'm only gonna do the power rankings. I'm not gonna really do match breakdown ones, unfortunately, for us this season, because I think that's just a lot too much. I mean, doing these power rankings alone was a really a lot of work to do, but I was willing to do it. Also, if the PPL ever wants to use my power rankings, go ahead and use it. If you do use it, I would like a little bit of credit if that's possible. But as long as you guys want to use it, that's totally fine with me. I would love it if you guys did, but again, it's your choice. You guys can make up your own power rankings. You have your own team. But I'm here to spread the love because I do love a couple of people here. A couple of people here are my boys, my girls, my everythings. So I'm really excited for this. Real quick, we'll discuss how the season's going to go. Each, as you can see, there's two divisions of 10. Everyone will face each other in their own division, so a 9 week season. So, for example, Ellie is only going to face everyone that's in her division. So, people like Nick Stevo, Mountain, and Shroomier, they're the only people she's going to fight this season. And the top four from each division will make the playoffs. So it's gonna be a fight for four spots in each division every single week. So every single week is gonna matter. So really big fights coming at you guys this week. How drafting also worked is that there was a point system. So from like 20, like say for the highest point tier was 27, which I think was 26, I don't remember off the top of my head, to like 22, 23, I think it was, one of the two. That was an S tier rank. You get one S tier, one A tier, two B tiers, three C tiers, three D tiers, or four D tiers, and then maybe one DE instead of a D. I don't really remember how the full tier system works, but basically you drafted from there. I think E tier was like a free tier, essentially. And then the Terra system would also work differently. So, for example, a Pokemon like Lokix, for example, from previous seasons of PPL, once it was allowed to Terra, it Terra into its three types and was one of the most broken Pokemon in the entire format. It ended up being Kill Leader. So what they decided to do this season around, instead of going super low tier or low tier in general, they decided that some Pokemon in the high tiers could Terra. So for example, Gengar, which is usually a 13 to 15 point range Pokemon, is a captain around 19/20 points, but it's a Terra captain available Pokemon. But however, some of those type of high tier Terras are only allowed to Terra into one type. So for example, if like a Gengar low kicks, if it's Terra, if it's allowed to Terra, it only gets one Terra type. But that's the only Terra type you can use that season. Now, does it have to run the Terra type in the battles? That's only if the other Terra captains are not that great in the matchup. So, but just know some stuff like that can Terra, but they only Terra one type. There's some Pokemon even lower on the spectrum that can Terra into two types. There's another tier where Pokemon can Terra into three types, and one of the lowest point tier Terras that when you get a captain, you can get 4 points. We'll kind of see later on as we kind of discuss here. But I think this is a very unique and different type of Terra system. I wonder how it's going to go. It does seem a little kind of confusing slash might be a little more complicated as the weeks prep on, but season's starting right now, so nothing can be changed about that. But we'll just see how this system goes. If it doesn't work, they're never going to do it again. But if it works, there's a possibility for returning. But let's see just how it goes. So with this rankings I decided to do, I went on obviously based on good speed tiers, some really good bulk, really good offense, good momentum. I did factor in a tiny bit of hazard control, as I think teams should have at least maybe one. But I'm also along the lines with Joey. I don't think you need really hazard removal to make a really good team. As long as the team can be really broken together. I mean, Joey won PPL season one, a full season return of it from season one, with no hazard control whatsoever. So it's proven that you can win a team without hazard control. So definitely something to keep that in mind. But again, also want to preference these rankings were done for fun. I think every single coach in here is an amazing coach. They obviously know exactly what they're doing, and me ranking them low does not define how good of a player I think they are. I'm going to keep gushing and praising every single coach I see on this list. So, with that being said, though, if you guys are excited, I'm ready for it. Sorry, this is going to be a little bit more of a heavy intro. I just want to make sure we covered every basis before we went into it. So, we're going to talk about the drafts. And I want to do it like this so that way you guys can never know who we're actually going to. So, I really went for these teams. I went through anything I really liked, disliked, and everything like that. And I would say the lowest ranking got a 6. So, it's no none were 5 and below, which I think is a good thing. I think the fact that you get a 6, which means your team's just okay, could have been better in some ways, but it's strong. And also, like I said, these people are in the league, so obviously I'm not probably good at drafting myself. But I do think some teams, even if they're like really ranked low, I love the creativity with some of these teams. And I think that's a perfect segue to talk about our first coach here, Just Weavile, who unfortunately is going to be the number 20 ranked coach. He has got the team of Palafin, which was his S tier, Ironmoth, which is his A tier, his two B tiers being Corviknight, Thundurus, his C tiers being the Politoed, Florges, his D tiers being Virizion, Espeon, Palossand, Komala, and his E tiers being the Fracture and the um Mightyena. So kind of basically that's how the tiering system kind of worked for it basically. So what about this team do I not like? Well, first let's talk about some of the good positives. First off, Palafin and Rain. That sounds disgusting. I like that option in a mode for that. Um, which I think is really good because Palafin's always one of the strongest water types. Is arguably the strongest water type in the entirety of Draft League itself, which I think is super strong Pokemon. I love things like Armoff. Armoff is one of my all-time favorite Paradox Pokemon. I haven't used that thing in a good while. I need to use it again, but it's a fantastic Pokemon. One of the best grass answers in the entire game. Corviknight is also a solid defensive steel type that can really provide really good hazard control. Thundurus has always been one of the best electric types in the Thundernet with 145 a special attack and is such a broken menace to society. Florge is obviously a good standard defensive. I think also with Terra is one of the things too. As you guys can see, it was a C tier Terra, but I Terra into a certain price point, so now it has two Terra types. So now you kind of see where I'm going at here with the whole system and stuff like that. Also, I'm gonna be yawning a lot, so be careful with that. And I will put timestamps down below so that way you guys don't have to worry about it unless you want to get to your own personal teams and stuff like that. in the description. But things like Virizion, um, um, decent enough bulky grass, which is pretty cool. Espeon, definitely a Pokemon I've been wanting to try. Taro Palossand, I think is actually one of the best Terra captains on this team. I think being able to Terra into a water grass and dark type with water compaction is just really, really cool. I think Dark is primarily there to stop pranksters and also to kind of get rid of that ghost weakness a little bit, which I think is really nice. Grass is a really solid defensive typing into opposing waters, which also getting that water compaction boost, which I think is really good. And also just the defensive typing in water as well is also really good to get that water compaction boost, which I think is really nice. Whew. From what I heard, Weavile likes to have some fun and likes to take some creativity, especially with his thumbnails. I've seen some of his thumbnails. Some of his thumbnails, god tier, awesome stuff. But he has Terra Fracture, and I want to see this thing pop off. I think there's so much potential for Terra Fracture, and I want this thing to at least get 5 kills this season. If not, try to get to a top 15 in kill leaders. I think there's so much potential for Fracture. I think it has decent enough speed. It's got some decent good offenses, and I think it still keeps Mold Breakers. So again, those EQs gonna hit hard. And as you guys can see, I'm also watching the PPL draft stream, which you guys can watch yourselves, by the way, on Joey's channel. So, what things about the team I love? Again, Palafin, Ironmoth, super nice. I love Thunderous. I love um some good of the synergy here. I think there's good momentum here with good Ute Turners, Flip Turners, some Volt Switchers. But let's talk about the reason why the team is ranked so low. Obviously, Weavile drafted kind of more so a creative team slash fun team, and also wanted to have a rain option for things like Thunderous with Weather Ball, Palafin rain boosted attacks, and maybe defensive options with the Palisade a little bit, and then maybe getting rid of a bit of a fire weakness of sorts with having like the Corviknight and the Virizion. But I'll be completely honest, this team does not really mesh well. I feel like if you're not having a Swift swimmer, I think having Politoed is kind of not a worth round pick, or shouldn't even be drafted on your team. Now, can Politoed primarily be a good defensive water while Palin's an offensive water? I do like that while still having the option of rain for it. I still feel like it's not that worth a pick to really have. And plus, you're putting Hurricane on your Pokemon. Like, granted, do I think Politoed's running Damp Rock every week? No. But I think the option where your opponent can now spam Hurricane into your team and your only two resist are going to be a Corviknight and a Thunderous. You're forced to really make them very spadef in order to take it. Because I'm telling you right now, Thunderous is not the most bulkiest thing unless you make it bulky. Unless you make it bulky, it's getting to a KO by a Specs Hurricane. Like Corviknight is your only real answer to Specs Hurricanes right now. Not even like Violate Fracture would live a Specs Hurricane in the rain. It would still nearly, if not two shot as well. So I do think that's going to be the thing, and also the electric spam is also a thing because like if you Terra your Palestine, you just got rid of your like like second to last electric immunity besides Thunderous. But then it takes another Mold Breaker Pokemon to be able to run and spam those electric type attacks into this team. Then I just don't feel like there's a lot of ways this team works. I think the defensive pairings on some of these Pokemon, like Corviknight Forges, is a standard defensive core, which is super disgusting, but I think it's really great. I think the option for Magic Bounce plus Default gives you decent enough hazard removal, but there's not a lot of hazard setting. There's like one Stealth Rocker and two T Spikes users. Wait, no, one T Spike user, and that T Spike user realistically doesn't want to really run T Spikes. And again, there's just not a lot of hazard being here. I think hazard support with a type of team like this might have made it a little bit better, but I don't know. Also, I think the Terra Fire on floor just don't know if I really like that. I think Terra Poison would have been a lot better, so you wouldn't have to risk potentially being toxic, even though Terra Steel does the exact same thing. But I think Poison just helps you give you more resistances and kind of gives you better type coverage in most matchups as well. So just for me, this is Weavile, who is the bottom of the list. But I do think Weavile can take a lot of fun stuff on this team, and he could probably prove me wrong. Like he drafted a Mighty Yetta. Name someone else that purposely does that. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Weavile does this season. So coming at number 19, and it kind of hurts putting this guy here because he is the one running the show. But I think it's fair to say he kind of messed up his team a little bit and now has to pay the consequences. It's the man the man of the Great Vine with the Vancouver Titans in Gravy. And first off, there's no Greedent. He is a fake Greedent fan. Fake. Call him a phony in the comments section. Don't get us. Don't do that. But I do love Gray's team. But as you're gonna see here, there's obviously some big problem. But let's first talk about his team. He has got Great Tusk, Raging Bolt, Slowking, Zorud, Saralege, Hisuian Braviary, Rabombi, Mousehold, Wheezing, and Alone Slashes, which is two Terra Captains, where Hisuian Braviary and Alone Sand Slash, based on the point Tyrion, Hisuian Braviary was only able to tear into two typings, which is Flying and Steel. Don't know how I feel about Steel, but Flying, perfect typing on that. And then Hisuian Sand Slash was Ice, Ground, and Electric. Again, Ice I can kind of see the vision for. I don't think it was a good Terra type. Ground's pretty solid, decent, it's not that terrible. And Electric is obviously perfect because most of the time bulky waters are your main answer to this thing, so I think electric is the perfect typing for that. I don't know. One weakness. You don't have to worry about anything else. So, what about Jack's team just is a little bit of thing I don't like. First off, I do think that he has a defogger and a rapid spinner. Both can be able to be one in some week, but don't really kind of run it. But I do love the things like I think we're seeing the combination of Great Tusk Raging Bolt again after Matt has been using it in BVR. Oh, I mean, sorry, my bad. Donphan and Giraffe Rake, that's my bad. So he's taking Greek inspiration from Matt for that. But I'll keep the bid up, damn it. But this team has some decent momentum, which I think is really cool. Um, I think there's some decent defensive ways you can run some of this team. We got to go for it, but there's honestly not a lot of good things to talk about. Like I think all the individual mons are fantastic. I love Sarah. Sarah's just super strong. Great Tusk is amazing. Rage Bolt's really great bold one. Love Zarude. Hisuian Bravery is the goat. If you guys did not see my UMPL D League run I had with Hisuian Bravery, one of my MVPs of that season. I also am a massive fan of Hisuian. What the heck? Alolan Sandslash was definitely a fan favorite I had really early on in the gen. But let's be honest about this team. It does not realistically synergize well. And I know Jack made a ton of transactions, I think, after his first round pick, and was like, no, I got to fix this draft. So he had to make a lot of moves and to do a lot of changing that he had to do to get the team he has now. Which I don't know what his original team looked like, so I can't really make a comment on that. But I think this team, I mean, it probably came out better than his original team, which I think is really great. But it probably might have came out a little worser because, like, you realistically think about here, there's a few U-turners and a chili reception mode. With these Hussein Sandslash and just chili reception give you good momentum regardless, which I think is pretty okay. It's not that bad. But when you come down to it, like Wheezing being your ground up poison, I think, is a really bad idea because Wheezing thrives on being levitate, which gives you a ground immunity. Which, let's be honest, this team kind of gets smacked around by a ground type a little bit. Also, the hazard setting is extremely non-existent. The only hazard setting I see is T spikes, which can be reliably broad, sticky webs, which are always reliable, stealth rock on Tusk, and the option of spikes on Hisuian. Why do I keep calling Hisuian? I keep looking at Hisuian Pokemon. That's probably why. A Alolan Sandslash, which, in my opinion, if you're grabbing Sandslash with Terra, I don't think you ever run spikes. I feel like spikes is just kind of a useless move slot for it. If we're gonna be Terra, I mean, if you can just fit Swords Dance two moves and then need a fourth move and get throw spikes on there, then that's fine. Or if we're like a Sash lead variant with spikes, that's also a possibility. But I overall just feel like I don't really see spikes ever being brought, so that really just pretty much limits the hazards to like three Pokemon on here. Even then, Great Tusk does not want to be forced to run Stealth Rock. So then you're relying on Sticky Web and T Spikes at that point, which are the only two hazards that can reliably be set up here. I think the physical offense on this team is really good, and there's some decent enough special offense. But I just feel like this is not really a well meshed together team. I feel like it doesn't really fit a lot of the roles from what I want Jack's team to look like. But again, this is Jack's vision. If Jack likes this vision, then you know what? It's all the power to Jack. There are a couple of favorites that I have on this team, like Zarude and Sarah and Zion Braviary. I really hope he pops off with that Braviary. That Braviary is going to be so strong. Sheer Force tinted lens sets are going to go so insane this season. Tidy Up and Rapid Spin are your only way of removing hazards as well. which I'm a little concerned about. But you also have Defog on History and Bravier, so they actually have solid hazard control, I feel like, on this team. Because Rabbit's can decently be reliably brought on Tusk. Defog can be occasion on the Bravier, not guarantee it. And Tidy Up is always going to be brought with Mousehold. So I think Jack has solid enough checks to hazard control for his team at least, if he's not going to end up bringing any really hazards besides sticky webs. So very much do like Jack's team. I just think and maybe Jack kind of maybe realizes that he could have fixed it a little bit. But again, this is all subjective. This is just an opinion based. But I do like Jack's team. Coming in at number 18 on the spectrum here is going to be Shroomaver and the Parasect Domain, which I do think it's amazing how you take a Parasect and make it the Eiffel Tower of Lumio Station, of Lumio City. Like I love that. That is so cool. Looking at his team though, he has Gregor Ninja, Mew, Ogerpon, Cornerstone, Grimmsnarl, Haxorus, Earthworm, Chandelure, Sandaconda, Rotom-Fan, and Toxtrot. Oh, and speaking of Earthworm, it's brought up a couple of topics here. First and foremost, there have also been some moves that have been unbanned this season. Now, there are majority of these Pokemon will be able to use this, but a one or two Pokemon may not be allowed to use this move for this team. So you might be talking to yourself, what am I talking about? Well, you see here, there is a Shed-Tail Pokemon on this team. Earthworm is going to be able to use Shed-Tail. So Pokemon like Earthworm, Sceptile, Smeargle, they are allowed to use Shed-Tail this season. But for funny enough, Cyclizar cannot. Houndstone, Basculin, White Stripe, at least. I could be wrong on that potentially. And Smeargle, they're allowed to use the move Last Respects. I'm not kidding you. That's allowed. And what's even more crazy to be allowed is that we're going to allow Terra on the Ogre Pawns, except one of them, maybe two of them, I don't remember. And that is why you see Ogerpon Coderstone being a Terra Captain, because it's allowed to be a Terra Captain this season. And I want to see exactly if this is going to be good, because I want to be sold on Ogerpon. I love Ogerpon Coderstone. I think the max, damn, can't talk today. The mask gives me Crash Bandicoot vibes, and I think that's such a really cool reference to the Tiki mask, which I think is really cool. So I'm really hoping I get sold on this Pokemon. Prove me, Shroomator, prove me that this Pokemon is broken. I know he doesn't sold on it technically until someone sold him on it, which I think was Alex, aka Onesie Bennett, sold him on it. Which shouts to Alex. But let's talk about this team recap. So I think Greninja is first off allowed to run Battle Bond. It's run able to run Protein. It's not going to be ability locked, which I think is really good. I think everyone's starting to pick up on that with things like Greninja, Libero, and stuff like that with Cinderace. I think it's not overly broken, and I think it's actually able to be managed for. Mew, I haven't seen a Mew drafted in a long time. Grimmsnarl, fantastic screen setter, one of the best in the game. Love me a good strong Haxorus. Earthworm to give you some good hazards. Some decent speed, but a really good special wall breaker in Chandelure. Good defensive ground in Sandaconda. The greatest electric immunity in the game in a Rotom fan, and a Toxicroak. The Rotom fan be the other Terra Captain, and I do think the Terra types are perfect. I think that is the perfect three that Rotom thrives with. Um, if anyone wants to pick another case for a potential attack, like maybe flying, but other than that, I think this is a solid, good selection of Terra Captain types. Hmm. So let's talk about what's really good about this team. I think this team has some solid, good momentum. Like first four Pokemon with momentum, and then a Volt Switch from the Rotom Band. And I think Croak gets your turn. I could be wrong though. If not, Croak should get your turn. I mean, he's a frog. Sometimes frogs have to hop and turn around, right? Stupid today, I know. I do think this team kind of like I love the fact that this team has some mixed options. Like Mew can be mixed offensive, Greninja can be mixed offensive, Toxicroak can be mixed offensive. I love some of the defensive counterplay with this team. I think Mew's a really good defensive piece when you build it like that. Obviously Grimmsnarl with Screams, the Earthworm with Shed-Tail, which I think is gonna be a massive threat. I think a lot of people need to respect that on Shroom Raiders team. Even though I do think Shed-Tail is kind of worse on Pokemon like Earthworm because of the fact that I do think you're forced to run Citrus Berry most of the time, if not every single week, you're going to bring Shedtail, which I think is going to be a little concerning. Plus, if you're bringing Shedtail, you're probably only bringing maybe one hazard on it, or because you can't bring both. You have to at least bring one, unless you're confident enough to want to just run one stab move or one coverage move and stuff like that. I do think Shedtail with this team is pretty disgusting. I think Shedtail and things like a Battle Blind Grin, a setup Mew, a setup Ogerpon, a setup Haxorus, like the setup options on this team is really good. What makes this team though rank so low as the number 18 team though? I feel like this team it only has a few good offensive pieces. I think this team doesn't fully mesh well with each other. Like I feel like you're forcing you to be a hazard bot on this team. You don't really want to bring hazards on Ogerpon. You are kind of limiting Earthworm's hazards if you're bringing Shedtail, which I don't really think is really great. Other than that, also you only have like one. You only not counting Mew and Earthworm, you only have one Stealth Rocker and Sandaconda. I think Toxicroak doesn't fit a decent amount of the time. I don't think it's a bad grounded poison. I think it's also a good solid fighting type for a team like this. I don't know. There's just something about this team I just didn't really enjoy. And even though I praised it quite a bit, and I'm going to praise everyone's team, that's just a given. I just think this team, it kind of limits itself in some capacity. But Schumer made the semifinals last season with a team that was not exactly similar to this, but in a way, and he did fantastic with it. So um, I think Schumer has all the possibilities of making a back-to-back run for this season. But I just don't know about the team. But Schumer is a great player, and he's also been really funny with his skits lately. And definitely check out his skits if you haven't already. I've seen it a lot, and I love how hard he goes into those skits. It's such a really really good time and a really good content right there. Coming in number 17, and this really hurts my heart. I did not want to do this to her. I'm so sorry, Ellie. And the Shanghai High Dragons. She has got Iron Valiant, Dragonite, Crocodile, Rotom Wash, Mesprit, Meloetta, Mimikyu, Muk, my son, Jolteon, Bastiodon, and Where'd Your Cargo? Um, That's too funny. I love that joke still to this day. Now, one of the biggest reasons, obviously, I nicked Ellie a little bit for was because of the hazard control. But there was another reason why I kind of nicked this team a little bit. Let's talk about some of the positive. First off, she grabbed Jolteon, best Terra captain in the entire game. I think flying would have been better than water, in my opinion, or fairy, one of the two. I feel like water, I mean, it helps with the electric immunity, which is kind of needed for this team, I won't lie. But water, I think, opens you up more to grass, where you kind of don't really have good grass answers. That's gonna be honest right here. Your only grass answer is a Dragonite and a Buck. The Buck ain't coming. I hate the fact that I yawned after I said that because I couldn't defend what I was gonna say. But I think water just, I mean, water's good for grounds, but I just don't know if I really liked water. I think flying would have been better than having that electric immunity, in my opinion. Plus another ground resist, which is really, really good. But Iron Valiant, super strong wall breaker in the entire format. Mix, physical, special. You can go any way you want with this. Crook, the previous PPL champion on the coach of Joey Pokemon himself, along with Dragonite. Like, hold up. You're drafting Joey Pokemon that are winning championships. Is this the time Ellie wins a championship? I'm seeing the prophecy right now. Ellie's been really loving Rotom Wash. I think this is her second or third consecutive time using Rotom Wash, which I think is always a fan favorite. I think sometimes with a draft like this, if you see great success with some Pokemon you really like, definitely redraft them. It's really good option there. Mesprit, very interesting Pokemon. I really don't really like Mesprit to be honest with you. But I haven't really used Mesprit, so I can't really say that. Meloetta, don't really think it's a really good Pokemon. I'm gonna be honest with you. After trying to make this thing work, it's just not that great. Mimikyu, love it. I don't care what anyone says. Mimikyu's a good Pokemon. Bastiodon, defensive terror captain galore, and monster Pokemon. And do not sleep on my boy. Where's your cargo? He is a goaded terror captain. I actually brought this thing 3 times in a season I had it, and it picked up at least a mini halfway sweep, and then got one other kill, and that was it. But one of the reasons why I think Ellie wanted to draft my cargo, not because of like it was like a decently good value Pokemon, there are copycat Pokemon. And have you not seen Ellie's P4G run? He is the master of copycatting. So you imagine a Shell Smash, a Sash Lead Macargo, or something along the lines of like that, and you copycat that Shell Smash. I want to see Ellie pull this off so damn badly because copycat with a Shell Smash on something like a Crocodile, which I know it doesn't get that. I'm just giving you guys an example, is disgusting. Copycat Shell Smash on something like Mimikyu, oh dear God. Or even Jolteon, and he's just unresistant no matter what you do. Please make it happy, Ellie. Make my son broken. Make my son broken. You already made him broken enough. Let's make him more broken. But I kind of off on a tangent now. But what I think it really kind of hurts this team, there is like no hazards really. And I know what you're thinking, but like, what? Why are you saying that? There's a lot of stealth rock option on this team. Yeah, it's stealth rock. I do like the fact that she can pigeonhole one Pokemon into doing Stealth Rocks. I think Bastion can actually do it decently well because let's be honest, all it's running is Iron Defense, Body Press with either Rest, Heavy Slam, and then the fourth move either being Sleep Talk or Rocks. I think Mesmer can be a reliable rocker. I also think Crook can be a decent enough rocker, but I do think Crook kind of benefits more being an offensive Pokemon than a rocker, in my opinion. But obviously, people disagree with me all the time, and it's very common. But I do think I like Mesprit more of the utility on this team. For Rocks and Crook, in my opinion, though. I think speed tiers are okay. They could have mashed a little better, in my opinion, but I think they were good. I do think the repeating and typings though is a little concerning because your ghost immunity is also your dark immunity, which I think is your ghost immunity is also your dark weakness, which you're kind of not really dealing with dark types besides an Iron Valiant. But you do have to Terra types with Bastion, which I think fighting is fair. Fighting is perfect. Fairy is pretty solid. Ghost is amazing. Water is obviously really nice defensive typing. And with Macargo, um, Fairy I think is pretty interesting. Water makes sense to some aspect. Grass is obviously perfect. And Steel, I actually don't really agree with Steel. I think Steel is kind of a really random pick, in my opinion. I personally think, uh, I think Ghost would have been really good actually. But it's going to be really interesting with Ellie's team. I really didn't want to rank Ellie this low, but I do think Ellie is going to be one of the fan favorites to win the season. Want Ellie to win this so bad, especially with my son Jolteon on her side. Bring home the gold, Ellie. Wait, that's the Olympics, wrong sport. But let's talk about the next coach here, number 16 on the list, and this is someone I don't personally know, and someone I haven't really watched a ton of their content from. But has really good lore, kind of copy pasta videos with some of the Pokemon for like the Halloweens and stuff like that, which I think is kind of cool. Like to use stories off of that with some of the like scary Pokemon. Love that horror aspect like galore. But we have Necro Stevo here, and I don't know his team name, so we're gonna go with the Marshadows. This is a very interesting team, though. We'll talk about more. But he has Darkrai up there, so just remember Darkrai's up there. Primarina, Archaludon, Clodsire, Regieleki, Bronzong, Lycanroc, Midday Form, Grafaier, Bramagast, Girder, Leavanny, and Dodrio. With the Terra Cactus being Clodsire, which can Terra into a Dark and Steel type, a Bronzong, which can Terra into a Steel, Fairy, and Fighting type, and a Dodrio, which can Terra into normal Flying and Ground. First off, let's talk about Terradodrio. That's a goat pick. That is a goat freaking pick. I think normal and flying, perfect choices. Ground is very interesting, but I love where you're going with ground. It invites the grass types, which you can take on, gives you an advantage over the electric types, which you would struggle with. Also with the rock types as well, which I think is really great. I think normal plus flying is going to be so goddamn hard to switch into this Pokemon. I even used non-Terrador and I got 3 kills in the game with that. Dodrio is not to be slept on. It is a goaded Pokemon. It's got shit abilities, but it's a goaded Pokemon. Leavanny, I like the action of the potential sticky webs, and also Leavanny is just a really good Pokemon, decent enough Pokemon in general. Girder, a solid defensive check. I believe Girder still gets defog, maybe, but I don't think you really want to defog on this thing. Grafai, slept on Pokemon. One of the most underrated Pokemon. in this generation. I think it's one of the most slept on Pokemon in general. And it's a shame because I actually kind of like Grafia. I got a 6-0 sweep with this thing and before, and but granted that's with Terra. I haven't tried normal Grafia really in a long time. Lycanroc Midday, love that thing. Bronzong, you already know I'm a massive Bronzong fan based on how I've used it recently. I love this thing. Regieleki, it's trash. Clodsire, the man that wanted to do it all, but it's not didn't get a chance to. I think as Terra Captain goes, though, it's very weird choice in my opinion. But I love unconventional choices. I love the chances. I've only seen one other Terra Clodsire before, and that was the SCA, the Soldier Associations League, about 2 seasons ago. I'm saying 2 seasons ago because I just finished my run this season I was in, and unfortunately did not make playoffs. And I'm also counting back last season after before this one. So I think 2 seasons ago I saw that, and that was by Franny, and I somehow made a god tier play of Thunderbolting a Clodsire as a Terra off of Misclick, which is awesome. Still remember that moment. It's awesome. Our Chaladon, which is a really solid, good offensive special wall breaker and stuff. And then there's Primarina, which is one of the best wall breakers on the special side in the entire game. And then Darkrai, which is trying to beat the Fraud Watches. I think he's on the way of beating the Fraud Watches, but he still has a long way to go. And as someone that has to have the team name of the Shadows, I think having a Shadow Pokemon seems like a really fitting thing. I think Quince is not. Anyways, let's talk about the Terra Captors first. So Cloudsire, I would imagine Dark is primarily there to stop the psychic weakness, but it's also primarily there to stop taunters, so taunt can't really work on it. From prankster wise, at least prankster wise, it stops the taunters. Steel, a fantastic typing to stop, the psychic types as well. Or so like the more bulky setup or psychics. My bad, excuse me. Bronzong, I think Steel is decent enough typing. Obviously, you have Heat Proof and Levitate, so kind of gets rid of some of the decent of those weaknesses. Fairy is very interesting. I don't know how I feel about Fairy. I kind of would have liked maybe Poison or Fire, maybe. And then Fighting obviously because of Body Press, which I think it makes sense. But I think Fighting is a little bit of a weird choice as well, but I do see the option for that. I think these Terra Captains are pretty decent. They're a little like one of them is very weird in my opinion. The other two make a lot of sense. But overall for the team, I do think there's a good amount of spike setting here on this team with Clodsire and Bramwellghouse, and they both can reliably do it well. Stealth Rocks is the Clodsire and the Lycanroc and the Bronzong. Like, Stealth Rocking is really great, and I think the option for Sticky Web is also really good. Why is this team so low if I ranked it like this? Well, I just think this team ends up kind of trailing off a bit. Like, if you're bringing Clodsire and Grafii, you kind of have to force yourself to tear the Clodsire. Because then right there, two Pokemon weak to Psychic if a Psychic type comes, which Psychic type still can decently come into the matchups. Even if Darkrai is the biggest threat to a Psychic type. I think that's a little bit of a weird stretch there. I also just think this team relies a little bit more on bulk. Like the offense is there, but I feel like it's a little bit more on the bulky side. Also, you look at your hazard removal options. Regieleki, in my opinion, not the greatest rapid spinner. Same with Brambleghast. I think Brambleghast is also really want to run rapid spin. And Girder does not want to be default. So removal is very kind of lackluster for this team. I do think so. But I do think some of the offense that you can pair well with this team. Also, the offense is a little tiny bit lackluster, just a tiny bit, just a tiny bit. Because it looks like the team is a little bit more on the defensive side than offensive. But just maybe how maybe Necro likes to do things, or he just really want to try some fun strats this season. Which definitely I always encourage fun strats. Fun strats are always fun. But I do think Necro does have a pretty solid team here. Just a little bit more downside on mine here, just based on how I look at it, obviously. But Necro did really good. Also, I just want to point out the lowest ranking was 6. Now we're in the 6.5, and I think we're going to start hitting. Actually, was Necro? Hold on, let me look at my notes here. Necro was the only 7.5 team. There was no sevens, so going forward from number 15 to, I want to say, who was the last one here? Professional. I'm a professional at this, guys. Um, from 15 all the way up to number 9 was teams that were, no, wait. No, I was right. No. Yeah, up to 9 were 8/8.5 ranked teams. Necro Stevo was unfortunately the only 7.5 team that I had. So we're pretty much now starting to get into some of the really more cooler teams I like with just the small nerfs and then having to compare the teams. Because when you have a lot of teams that are the same rank, you had to combine them and then kind of battle them out in the mini tournament to see who has team games held the better. So that's kind of how I had to do it going forward. So coming in number 15 for this season on the power rankings is going to be the Dawn Fanatic, which I'm very sad I didn't get a chance to face him in PPL the season that we were together, even though my team was kind of trash and I kind of had a miserable time. I really would have loved to face Dawn Fanatic, but hopefully one day. But his team is Latios, Cinderace, Blastoise, Gliscor, Tinkaton, Galarian Moltres, Passimian, Mismagius, Vileplume, and Zebstrika. First off, your only hazard removal options is Cinderace plus Blastoise. Don't really like that, honestly. Blastoise can be a reliable spinner, don't get me wrong, but I don't really think it really wants to spin all the time. I think Shell Smash is such a viable set on this thing. And Core Change on Cinderace, you can make it work, but let's be honest, you really don't want to do that. So, I think also the hazard setting here is very limited and it's kind of weak. I'm not gonna lie. Gliscor, which can do it all, and then Tinkaton for rocks. That's kind of it. Unless Vileplume gets T spikes. If Vileplume gets T spikes, then it's not too bad, but still, it's very limited. Also, let's talk about Terra Vileplume. I am very interested to see how this thing works. Steel, which I think it makes sense for a couple of reasons. Fairy, obviously a decent enough defensive typing, and Water, which I'm very intrigued with. But if we're talking about some Terra captains, his two best ones are Miss Magius, Ghost, and Fairy make the most sense. I personally would have liked Electric over Fairy slash Ghost. I think over Ghost, honestly, because Electric with having no weaknesses besides Mold Breaker, Earthquake, I think is really great, honestly. But Zebstrika, this mon is the truth. I just recently used it in that SDA run. It did not perform exactly how I wanted to, but Terra wise, it was amazing. Absolutely love this Pokemon. The only thing about the Terras here, I do not partially agree with Fire. I don't really see where Fire comes from. I personally would have loved flying slash ice. I think flying fits a lot better because it hits the grass types and still hits the grounds, and then you can hit relatively hard. And plus, with lightning rod, plus motor ride, which is really great. Water is fantastic because of sap sipper, which I think is really great. I don't really see the idea with electric, in my opinion. I think also electric and fire. I didn't really pay attention to that. I think electric and fire are not the greatest Terra Captain choices for it, but it's his idea of what he thinks is really good for his wand, so we're just to go with it. Overall, this team has a little bit limited momentum. I do with this, like there's U-turn on Glasscore, U-turn on the U-turn on basically U-turn slash flip turn on the first four, and then two U-turners in the mulch well, three more U-turns. I think it's a lot more momentum than I thought it was actually. This team is also got not a lot of great bowls. Like, I think you're forcing Blastoise to be defensive. Obviously, you have Gliscor, Tinkaton, and then Vileplume. The team is a little bit more on the offensive side, which I kind of personally like. I think I like a little more of an offensive team. Latios is always great. Cinderace is amazing with Libero. Tink, don't sleep on offensive Tink. Tink was actually a pretty cool Pokemon when you run it offensively. Moltres is one of the best setup sweepers in the game. It's super easy to get the thing moving. I do think I would again, like I said, I would have liked a little bit more hazard options because Defiant Passimian really would love to take advantage of that. Like I think spin is super free into this team as well. Because Miss Magus can always be a play like that where you just make a read and then just boom, it dies, or it just gets crippled down to the point that it's going to be not be able to really come in and you want to spin, especially if hazards are up. But I think it's a really cool and interesting team. Again, the only thing about this team I didn't really like was the fact that the hazard setting is super crippled onto one Pokemon. But I think I love the momentum. I love some of the offense. I think there's some good synergy around this team. But we'll just see how Don Fanatic does this season. He has been or actually the creator of the PPL, but unfortunately, it took some time away due to his own personal time going in his life, and also maybe just needed a break from the community itself. But he's been back since season one, and it's really awesome to see him back. He's obviously a really cool guy. Actually, he has some really good, entertaining battles. You guys should definitely check out his channel. So, coming in at number 14, officially going to make his return, and hopefully we get to have him because he unfortunately was not able to be with us during BBR because of something coming up, which is super sad. I would have loved to have seen this man in BBR, but we got my main man, the spam of ham sandwich himself. If you get that joke, I'm really happy. Thank you. But we got Q and the Costa Rican. And by the way, Spectre, I'm guessing Spectre I don't think was banned, but I think Dragapult was like one of the only banned Pokemon. So Q being ripped away from his baby, sad to say, especially since he was like a second pick overall. So I felt like that was even more heartbreak for him. But he walked away with a pretty cool team, in my opinion. He's got Urshifu Single Strike. He has got Landorus, Snarian, Petrarun, Jirachi, Araquanid, Gardevoir, Superior, Hitmontop, which is literally, if you guys have known Q, it's his profile picture for God knows how long now. Cincino, Avalugg, and Baby Draglow, aka Baby Mascot. His Terra Captains are Araquanid with Water and Ghost, Hitmontop with Fighting, Dark, Steel, which I'm not gonna lie, looked like electric on the draft slide when we saw it. Not gonna lie. And his Sunia Avalugg, which is Fairy, Water, and Poison. Q's team. I really do like. The only negative things I had to really look at when it comes to Q's team, it just seems a little bit more. I don't know. It just seems like it pushes a little bit towards a defensive side, even though I know that sounds really stupid of me saying. But if you kind of just see where I'm going, like Lander is a really defensive piece, Petron defensive wall, Jirachi good defensively, Arachne could be defensive. Gardevoir, especially defensive. Avalugg, unkillable in the physical defensive side. Hitmontop, which can be bulky. Like, you kind of see my idea where I think it's a little bit on the defensive end of here. But I love a lot of these Pokemon. Like, Urshifu Single Strike. Recently just really used it and did not perform as well as I really wanted to. But in the past, has won me a championship before, so it's always a fan favorite there. Lando T has fallen off, but it's still that guy. You just have to play well with him to be that guy. Petron, based off what you've seen from Joey, this thing is a god tier thing. I tried using myself and it was absolute trash. But it's gonna be really interesting to see how Petron is run by Q this season. Jirachi is always a win con. Araquanid, obviously with webs, also a decent ground resist. But I think the fact that you can tear this damn thing into a ghost type, which first off doesn't try to keep those webs off of me spin block, but also Terra Water is literally unswitchable. Choice Banded Araquid, I think, no matter what, can one shot, if not comes close to two shotting. Just about every damn Pokemon in this entire game. The only things that do not that can only switch into it that prevent it from being two shot is Storm Drain Pokemon. That's it. Otherwise, this Pokemon's in Menace to Society. Hitmontop, I think fighting makes sense because of Mach Punch with Technician, but it's a little bit of a weird choice. Dark for Sucker Punch, which I kind of see that also kind of stops Prankster and also gets rid of a Psychic weakness. Steel, a really good defensive typing for things like the Fairy types, and Psychic, so also gives you boosted Bullet Punch with Technician. So I think Q really went nice with the Terra types to help his priority, which I think could be really, really good. I think Ice would have been a little bit better though because of Triple Axle. But it's fair. Avalon, I think Fairy and Water, you literally cannot go wrong with Fairy and Water. Fairy and Water is like the perfect two typings for Avalon. I think I really like the poison option. Here's the reason why I like the poison option. First off, sometimes if you don't have a good mon that can break through physical defensive Pokemon, like your special Pokemon dies, you need to have that backup plan. And that's where Toxic comes into play. Toxic is the best backup plan you could ask for. But with Poison, you can now not be um, poisoned and you're still going to stay alive. And the worst case is get burned, but then burn chip damage is not going to rack up as much as poison would. So I actually like the poison pick up there. I actually really like that. Even though Dracloaks is never going to be really brought to a game, I would love to see Q smack someone up with Dracloak. I would love to see that. I also and the main thing I think I kind of ranked Q's team a little here. There is really no hazards here. Now I see three stealth rockers, right? And I see sticky whips, right? Here's the thing: Patchworm does not learn toxic spikes, so no toxic spikes. Kind of a miss there, but nothing crazy. The biggest miss on this team though is no spikes. I think spikes, as he likes to say, would have really benefited this team. It benefits things like Jirachi, it benefits things like Rackman, it benefits Gardevoir, it benefits Urshifu. I really think spikes would have been really good. Cincino is a tidy up sweeper as a hazard removal, and also having two solid like actual reliable rapid spinners is also really good as well. I think Q's hazard removal is perfect. I think there's everything about it is perfect for that. But again, his hazard setting, I feel like you're kind of going to limit it to a little bit to an extent because like one of them is going to be your rocker, right? Like, is it going to be Avalugg, or are you going to focus on being like a Terra broken monster? Are you going to have it be Lando and have Lando kind of just be utility, or are you going to have it Jirachi, which means you're a really utility piece, but you would really want it to be an offensive breaker such scarfer matchup. There's just those kind of factors that went into it a little bit, but overall, I love Q's team. I'm so happy Q is gonna be back in draft, and let's just hope that Q can show that he's got no rust on him. He's ready. He's been doing a lot of battle spot and stadium games on the side, and a lot of just like draft videos. Well, not draft video, but battle videos. So he's definitely gonna be still ready to go. Let's just hope he's ready to go for the season. Coming up as number 13, and this is someone that I actually never really watched until Generation 8, but he only did like a few leagues in Gen 7 and Gen 8 that I never really watched. He never did any Gen 7 content. He actually started his journey in Gen 8, and I didn't really watch him until he became a part of this G what was it? No, C CO no, I don't remember. Like Champions of Galar tournament that league that Aquarius hosted. I'm really forgetting what the name was. I'm so sorry. Um, but it is everyone's favorite businessman, Mounte, the only most professional dressed, number one ranked professional dressed uh battler in the entire draft league scene. And I honestly love Mounte's content. He's super chilled, he's super relaxed, and he just overall has first off, some of his team slides are Pokemon trading cards. That is the most perfect and badass thing ever. I love that so much. Also, he's got some Mega Man music, so if you're a fan of Mega Man, he's got good Mega Man, and he's a big wrestling fan. You wrestling fans, you should listen to him. Especially watch his draft analysis. It is the funniest thing ever, and I love it. So his team, he's got Terrapagos, Weavile, Clefable, Infernape, Flygon, Sceptile, Quillfish, indeed. I'm sorry, I had to make the joke eventually. Vikavolt, Drifblim, and Electric. Or like, yeah, Electric. I think that's how he's supposed to go over that. He grabbed Terrapagos. And it's gonna be really interesting to see how Mount uses this. Excuse me. Because Terrapagos has definitely had something in this format where if it's not VGC, when it comes to singles, I feel like it's always forced to run boots, which I think is a hindrance, but at the same time, it's kind of needed. I'm not gonna lie to you. To get broken multi-scale, you need boots. Like you look at your first two Pokemon being forced to run boots most weeks, I feel like it's gonna be a little bit of a hassle here. Because you really look at his hazard removal, it is Terrapagos plus Drifblim. Now, Drifblim as a defensive option can do it. I wouldn't be surprised with that. But again, I don't really think you're going to be forced to Terrapagos to run Rabbitspin every week. I know from watching Leo's videos, he's been forced to run Rabbitspin damn near almost every week on his Terrapagos because of that. And I do think that's kind of a bit of a hindrance to a first pick like that when you're forced to run one move the entirety of the season. So I hope Mount can be creative and can make this Pokemon not have to run. boots. I want to see an actual like good viable Terrapagos because I used it once and it was all right. I used it very well, but kind of really didn't speak to me as like a broken Pokemon. If this is VGC, it's the most broken thing and deserves to die. Weavile, absolute love Weavile. Such a strong Pokemon. My girl Clefable, I love this thing. This is the best fairy type in draft. I don't care what anyone says. Infernape, which has definitely seen a big fall off since its return in Gen 9. I really hope Mountaic can really make this Pokemon shine. My goat, my guy, Flygon, absolutely love this Pokemon. One of the best grounds and one of the best dragons in the entire format. I don't care what people say. Sceptile, which is a Terra Captain, which can tear into ground and fire. Ground kind of makes sense a little bit for what it needs to do. Um, and checking those opposing fires a little bit. But I don't really know ground fits. Fire is perfect. Fire is the best Terra typing for it because it'll be dealing with things like Corviknights and Skarmories. I think it's really great. But also the option to Shed Tail. I think Shed Tail, oh dear God, is going to really terrify some coaches. Because imagine this. Shed Tail, Dragon Dance, Flygon. Shed Tail, Swordsdance slash Nasty Plot Infernape. Shed Tail, set up Clefable. And they set up Terrapagos with Shed Tail. And still keeping its multi-scale intact as well. It is disgusting how this works. But like I said, though, Fast Shed Tail, from what I understand from Joey, is not great. And I kind of can see the point of it. Like Fast Shed Tail, I feel like unless you're getting a prediction on a switch out, something like that. Also, I think the fact that you take away the opportunity of Unburden from Sceptile, in my opinion, unless you EV it correctly to where, Shed Tail and you can still make Citrus Berry work to some capacity, but I don't know. I do think his hazard setting though is very limited. Like he only has one spiker, which can be a decent enough be okay spiker. T spikes, which again is decent enough T spiker. But you look at your stealth rockers. It is Clefable, Infernape, and Flygon. And I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I don't like any of those as a stealth rock option. I think there's so many other options. Like Infernape, obviously is a Sash lead set, can also be a thing. Clefable is a decent enough rocker. But again, I don't really like seeing stealth rocks in these type of moments. I like seeing more offensive builds, great setup builds and stuff like that. But again, that's just how the players like to play, and that's what Smogon has these Pokemon listed as they can do. Another Terra Captain I haven't really mentioned is the Indeedee. I think Psychic Fairy Ghost, perfect type. I think those are all perfect. I personally maybe would have liked normal on here. And the reason why I say normal is because of the fact that normal spam can be really broken in draft. Because if they don't have a really good normal resist, normal spam just go crazy. Psychic for expanding force makes a lot of sense. Fairy, a good defensive typing, but also Fairy Dazzling Gleam hits are really good. And then Ghost to get spin block, but also to take on opposing Ghost types that you kind of just did not handle. And also taking on a good defensive typing for normal, it's also really good as well. Um, Electric Electric is interesting. I think it is different. It takes advantage of poison, steel, and electric for its terra typings. Water is a defensive typing. And I don't really know if I'm going to see this thing brought. Mountaic might bring it 1 week, but that's just the 1 week it's going to shine, and that's it. I don't really know if I like this on this team. And I also don't even know if it's that good of a Pokemon. I think it's good in the like extreme low tiers that I was in a league for, and it was actually pretty fun. But webs with this team as well. I haven't mentioned this yet, but webs look insane on this type of build. It is so crazy how webs work with this team, which is again another reason why I feel like the whole idea with Shed Tail, with Sceptile is a little of a weird gimmick. But Vikavolt could also just be something that's not, just webs. It can be an offensive breaker with choice specs. Um, there's a decent enough trick room mode, like an okay trick room mode going with this team with Indeedee and Clefable. I think Clefable gets trick room at least, from my knowledge, if I remember correctly. So I think a semi trick room mode can be really cool with this team as well. Um, Again, I feel like there's a lot of good pieces here. I think the only thing I don't really like is that this team is kind of like it looks like it's almost one dimensional in some weeks. Obviously, there's more than one dimension going, but they look almost like one dimensional a little bit. But Mountay is an accomplished draft league player. He has won many championships in Gen 8. He's already won a championship in. Did he win a championship in Gen 9? No, he did not. Sorry, Mount. But Mount has had incredible runs. I think when it comes to the record of his games, he's only had less than 10 losses in Gen 9, combined with every single league he's ever been in from Gen 9. Maybe a little over 10. I just remembered um, PAC. So he's very rarely lost in draft league since Gen 9. And even in Gen 8, he decently, like, rarely lost. Like, this man is one of the juggernauts and is one of the all time best players. And I'm looking forward to one particular matchup that he's going to have. And I'll talk about that when we get to the coach. But overall, Mountain, a solid player, a solid guy, and one of the best dressed guys. I mean, he literally wears a suit to every game. He doesn't care how hot it is in his apartment. He literally will wear a suit every time. That's dedication. And that's staying on brand. Perfect representation there. Up next, we have number 12 here, and I'm glad for his retirement. I think he really walked away with a pretty solid team here. It's my main man, Coach. Love the New York Marauders. I love that intro. That is such a fire intro for a team name. He even got Mr. Talent to co-star in his draft analysis, man. Mr. Talent has been like gone from YouTube forever. So the fact that he made an appearance, you gotta see this. And hopefully you guys get the bit I was just going with there with the Mr. Talent and Drewby thing. Anyways, we're talking about Drew's team, and I actually really like Drew's team. It has got Hisuian Samurai, Memo Shrine, Glamora, Latias, Lola Ninetales, Reggie Steal Your Girl, Hisuian Electrode, Fire Toros. That's pretty fire. I'm sorry, man. I know what's going on with me today. The morning is not me. We have Torterra, Beartick, and Dusclops. So the Terra Captains being Glamora and Dusclops. So let's look at this team here. Lot of options for Stealth Rock, which I think is really, really good. I mean, more inviolable option for Stealth Rock. Like Stealth Rock's taken away from Mamoswine is beautiful. Mamoswine can thrive now with having that hail buff, which I think is really good, and also just an offensive wall breaker. I think having rocks on either Ready Steel or Gomorrah fits a lot of more weeks, which I think is really great. I like with Gomorrah being a Terra Captain, which was one of the highest ranked Terra Captains you can get. And obviously, grass, I think, was the perfect choice. I think water also worked here, but grass was probably the most perfect choice as defensive, but also works as an offensive Terra type as well. But I like that it's not going to be pigeonholed to be rocker, so now it can actually be more of a setup threat. It can be more of a special variant. It can have a lot more utility outside of it, which I think is really great. The thing about Drew's team, though, it's decently fast, but it has meshing speed tiers when it's fast. And here's the reason why I say that. Not counting Electrode, Latias and Ninetales speed tiers, they mesh. Then a few bits down, then it's um, Tauros, and then from there it's decent enough speed tiers wise until you get to Mamo, Suing Samurai, and Limb where they kind of mesh again. So speed tier is going to be distributed a little bit better. I do love the Beartick pick though. I would have loved Terra Beartick more though. Terra Beartick is the goaded mon right there. One of my favorite mons I used in my one run with the LGA. Yes, the Lake Guardian Association. Yep, LGA. Dustclops as a Terra Cap. Very interesting choice. Ghost, I think, is also a really solid typing just because of Poltergeist and obviously it's a ghost type. Fairy is interesting, but I can kind of see why to get rid of that dark weakness. And then certain poison and steel types are kind of like iffy at most matches. I think it's really good. I think dark to stop prankster, which is really, really good because if you could taunt this damn thing, you basically cripple it. So dark for taunt or shenanigans is really great. Ice for the defense buff and snow. I'm sorry, Drew. I hate the idea. It's not good. It's honestly not good with having that. I get the idea, but that makes it your fourth ice type. You don't need more than that. I think Dusclops is fine as is though. I think Beartech is the better Terra Captain, which I think eventually Drew's going to light and will do that. For Terra Captains over the Beartech, I personally was a fan of Electric. Having one weakness is also really, is like really nice, and you kind of mitigate that a little bit. I also would not hate the idea of something like fire. Fire is also really cool. It could stop will-o-wisp and stuff like that. And I also think grounds is really good defense is really good at defensive and an offensive typing that kind of has powered earthquake, which is really great. Also stopping things like volt switch, thunder wave is also really good as well. So and it helps check the steel types that Beartech kind of just struggle a tiny bit with taking hits for. So overall, I think Drew has he's got some decent momentum. Not strong momentum though. I don't think he's got strong momentum. He has decent hazard setting. He has good bulk, but I do think I love the Veil offense. I feel the team's a little gimmicky though, a little bit. Like I feel like if there was Tara Baratek, this team would easily have been shot up almost to the top 10, if not the top 5, just because of how much I would love the Tara Baratek. But I do think Drew's team is worthy of number 12. It actually almost was going to be 13 um, with Mount, but I think this team slightly edged out Mountes for me because of just select. I think it has better going than what Mount has. So overall, I love Drew. He's one of my favorite people to watch, and he is one of the goats. He's one of the OG stands of Draft League as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how well he is going to do this season. Coming in number 11 happens to be the guy right above him. You know, in some circles, he's simply known as, well, he's known as the Dawn. Dawn, the Dawn. Mephisto is back in draft, and he's one of my all-time favorite people to watch in draft league. His skits that he did back in BBR slash PBL from the first season he joined, just from his vibes, his energy, and just him, man. He is an absolute freaking gem. And if you guys have never watched Mephisto, what the fuck you doing right now? You go watch this boy. He's part of the mafia. I'm just kidding. He's not really a part of the mafia. It's just a bit. But I love Mephisto. He's one of the best personalities in draft. I absolutely love it. And the man has always made time for draft league, even with being incredibly busy. He literally takes teams that he can't actually build himself. He takes teams that were built for him, and he just wins teams with them. That's how good at the game he is. Also, he's got Pablo in this Diego. Ayo, ayo. Sorry, I love Pablo. Pablo's an MVP, and I absolutely love Pablo in general. But let's talk about his team now. He's got Kira, Lander's Karna, which is Sheer Force, which I'm a little surprised is an A tier, not an S tier. Low Kicks, Raikou, Tentacruel, Skeledirge, Cobalion, Abomasnow, Wigglytuff, Smeargle, Volbeat, and the Oranguru. So Kyurem is the S tier. Little bit of a shocker there. I don't think Kyurem, in my opinion, is worth an S tier pick. I think it's definitely an A tier pick, but I don't really know. I think the Lando and the Kyurem should have swapped, but that's just me. Low Kicks is back as a Terra captain, but he is running those max point one, so he's only allowed one Terra. But let's be honest, you only need Terra Bug. Terra Bug is just super good. It does get rid of your Dark type though, which we'll talk about that in a second. And why it's gonna hurt Mephisto's team here a little bit. You have Terra on the Smeargle, which is normal Ghost Water. Water, very random Terra type. I'm not gonna lie, never really seen water on Smeargle, but normal and Ghost, perfect two choices there. I'm not gonna lie to you, Mephisto's team is all over the place, and it's probably one of you would probably look at it and think it's one of the worst teams ever. But that's what makes me like his team even more. And overall, I think there's a lot of great pieces here. So let's look at some defensive options here. Tentacle, Skeledirge is a disgusting combo for a defensive option. You get kind of messed up by ground types, but it's still a really good defensive team synergy right there. I'm a massive fan of the Cobalion. I love Cobalion. I think the option for Veil is super good. Also, giving the defense boost to Chiram with Blizzard Spam is disgusting, in my opinion. I do think the speed tiers could have been a tiny bit better. Tiny bit. Not like needs to be drastically better, just a tiny bit better. I do think hazard removal is a little limited. Obviously, you have Tentacruel, and everyone's gonna say, like, oh, there's hazard removal in Smeargle. You're not doing that on a Smeargle. That's one of the main things I think that kind of hurt Mephisto's draft from being in the top 10 was that, but I love the offense. Chiram, Lando, Pablo, Cobalion, like these are just such great mons. Veil offense as well. The Volbeat, I'm gonna be honest with you, is trash, but I'm gonna trust Mephisto on this one. And I want to see what the hell he's going to do with Oranguru. I want to see if he can make this thing stupidly good broken. I want to see the potentials here. I want to see the image of it though. But overall, I love Mephisto. He's always been someone that is just an entertainer and is a really solid battler. He is also like first ever time doing draft league for BBR season 4 or 5 was one of the two, where he joined Joey and some others into the BBR. He made playoffs, very barely, but he had a good fun team. And then from there for then the PPL to SPL, this man was unstoppable. He was damn near like untouchable. Only the very select few could actually beat him in draft. So let's see if he can show that he's still got that thing on him. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I love talking like Mephisto. It's just so fun. But now we get into the top 10 teams, and we're in our last two teams that were ranked 8.5 out of 10. If you're still here, thank you also for watching. Like the video, and let's with that get into this. So we're going to talk about the last two teams here. Making his return to draft in the 10th spot is going to be Iron Boffin. Now, if you guys are a big fan of Iron Boffin from the past, he has obviously been a major contender in some leagues like the NBA, like WBE, and stuff, and he's not really played competitive with one ever since WBE before Gen 8. He has done none of the Gen 8 stuff and has done none of Gen 9 until he came back. Also, I love the updated ride on pick with the Premier Ball and also like the ride on line to escape the logo. I love that. And I think Botham honestly drafted probably the best team he's ever drafted. And it works in so many great ways. There's only very few flaws to this team that I saw. So let's kick it off here. He's got Rory Moon, Goldango, which is actually a combo I used before, and it's a meh combo. I mean, Goldango kind of sucks. Um, I know a lot of pitchforks are aimed at me, but I haven't used it more than once, so let's just do that. Anyways, Azumarill, Torkoal, Vaporeon, Cresselia, Venusaur, Rhydon, Galvantula, Apom, and Trophius. Terra Captains be the Venusaur and the Galvantula. Venusaur, which can tear into a fire and fairy type. Honestly, the two only typings you really need on Venusaur, so they were perfect. Knocked out of the park there. Electric, Ice, and Ghost. Ghost, weird choice a little bit. I understand the reason, but still a weird choice. Ice, which makes a lot of sense. And Electric, actually does make sense because get rid of that ground immunity and that lightning rod resist. Goodbye everything that dies to thunder. Now, as you can see, Botham does have a bit of a sun team slash sun mode with his team, with having things like the Roaring Moon, the Cresselia, the Venusaur, which can take advantage of sun, and also the Tropius. I think speed tier wise, he has a really good speed. I think he also has that speed control of the sun as well. I think is also a factor. Also with the webs aspect is really good as well. I do think the hazard setting. I think some of the offense is amazing. Moon plus Venusaur, Rhydon. Don't sleep on Rhydon. Botham, I'm telling you right now, your boy Rochester, he is broken with Terra. You better make him a Terra captain. I love the Galvantula, but Rhydon. Right on. And plus, you might be able to afford points if they get the Terra on the trophies. I'm telling you, make the move. Right on to go. And this team defensively is disgusting. From things like potentially Goldango, the Azu, then the Vaporeon Crest. Just, I would vomit seeing this team. Vomit from seeing this team. It's disgusting. But let me talk about some of the things about what keeps Botham's team a little bit low. I think this team a little bit too defensive. I think there's like when you have the Brydon, which is a good defensive option, but it can be offensive. But then goes Press, Vaporeon, Torkoal, Azu, Golden Go, as we said. I think it's a little bit too defensive. I think he went a little too more heavy on the defensive. I personally don't hate the option of having two water types because Azu is kind of limited more as an offensive water of sorts, where Vaporeon is a more true defensive option because of Wish Pass. Cresselia, which is a really good dual screen setter. I do think without Terra, it's a little bit mid. If this thing was allowed to Terra, please Terra at Botham. It's broken with Terra, unless the coaches are smart and Terra banned it. Sorry guys, my throat's been a little dry right now or something like that. But Torkoal is your only way to remove hazards, which I think is a big red flag. It can spin decently amount and can be brought as a spinner. I just don't think that should be your only way of removing hazards. I think, like, obviously, rocks are the only thing that's going to hurt cress, but spikes hurt everything else. So, sparks and sticky webs are not looking good for you right here. But I think overall, though, Boffin's team's fantastic. I think you have the perfect Terra Captain in Venusaur. I think you're probably going to plan on bringing Sun more weeks than you want to, but I want to see how Boffin is created. Plus, it's Boffin's first time coming back in the draft league, and for how many years it's been. And honestly, Boffin's return, I think he's been probably getting some help and doing some studying, which I think is really great. And it's going to really honestly pay off for him, I think, because he drafted a super solid team solid enough that I think it was worthy of the top 10. Just a fantastic Pokemon. There's some sets of favorites I have on there, like Rory Moon. One of the best Pokemon out there, man. I don't care what people say about this Pokemon. It's great. Azu, absolutely love that thing. Rhydon, such a goat pick. And then there's Tropius. Tropius is probably never being brought. There's only been 1 week, and it's better be against Joey. And speaking of Joey, actually, he's number 9. Joey, aka Pokemon D, Los Angeles Lakers. Arguably, for me, the best draft league player in the entire game. He is Mr. Mathematic. He is Mr. Help Build for Pacific Live hits like this. I am so excited to see Joey. And this is a fun fact for all of you. He is the season 1 champion of the revival of the PPL. He didn't compete season 2 just because he was in another league at the time. And plus, he wanted to do his league, SPL. So Joey technically didn't get a chance to defend his championship. So since Addison has not come back, Joey is hereby defending his championship against everybody here. And I think Joey has a good chance to win again. Now, Joey actually decided based on how his team was being synergized and how his points were going. There were only a very select few. There was only like maybe 3 S tier Pokemon left in the 3 or 4. There was like 4 S tier Pokemon left for Joey to pick, and I think there was just probably like only like 1 or 2 good options left in the S tier, and I think they probably didn't really speak to how Joey really wanted to build his team. So I think Joey decided to go a little bit more of an unconventional route and not draft an S tier, which I think is very fair. I think it's very fair, but he did walk away though with really good team here. Urchin Rapid Strike. I don't want anyone to say anything negative about this. This is a fantastic Pokemon. Absolutely love it. Screamtail, it can kick rocks, but it's a really good defensive Pokemon. Pairs beautifully um the Urshifu. Torn Eye, something I no Torn Eye. Thundy Eye, something I've never used, but I love the option of it. It has options to Rain Dance for water boosted rapid strike certain strikes. It's got water moves to help with the Rain Dance to give Swift Swim Overquill, which I better see this season. God damn it. Thunder options was really good. Weather Ball strats is really good. Metagross for a really good, reliable stealth rocker, but also just like a mon that can just do just about everything. Terra Entei, which I am so excited to see Joey use Terra Entei. I want to see this thing as a kill leader. Overquill, which is always a fantastic Pokemon. Cyclizar is a form of hazard removal and great utility, but it's kind of mid, honestly. Terra Bobble is making its return with Fairy and Fire, but this time with Poison. So I'm very interested to see how Joey takes Poison and makes that work. I'm really interested to see how he's going to do with that. The return of Pile of Swine since WBE, which was the last time Joey used it. It wasn't WBE Ultra Sun and Moon. It was WBE Galler Joey. That was actually the last time he used Pile of Swine. And then Poltergeist. I personally think the Poltergeist should have been the Terra Captain in my personal opinion. I think that would have been a better Terra Captain choice. But I love Entei, and Arbala has proven that with Terra, it's a very formidable Pokemon. So, really think there's some potential there. But Poltergeist could still do it. Viz was able to pull off the unthinkable with a Poltergeist set that didn't make any sense, but worked perfectly. Overall, Joey has really good options here. I do think Joey limited himself though a little bit. Like he only has 1 Spiker and T-Spiker, and he does have at least 3 Rockers. 2 of the 3 can reliably do it. Because I don't think Screamtail really wants to be running rocks. I think Metagross or Plasmine can always run rocks effectively. And even though there's some weeks, I don't really think you really want to bring rocks on Metagross. But Plasmine can definitely fit that rocks role if you need to in certain weeks if you bring Plasmine. So overall, Joey has some decent enough bulk, really good offense, some really good creative liberty with his team, and that's what I overall love about Joey's team. The only thing about Joey's team I didn't really like was he only did have one real speedy threat. Like Screamtail is fast, but Screamtail, in my opinion, doesn't count as a fast Pokemon. It's just a fat Pokemon. So his speed is a little bit of a lackluster. I mean, even though he does have a 121 in Cyclizar, I mean, Cyclizar's not really that much of a good Pokemon. And I really would love to see Joey use Cyclizar and just see if it's really that good. Because I want to see if it seems good. Because I tried it with Terra recently, for a league, and it was kind of mid. It well, to be fair, it also got kind of screwed over in RNG roles and stuff like that. But anyways, point is, I love Joey's team. I think Joey said it was one of his most underwhelming teams, and everyone that says that usually ends up doing well and makes playoffs and wins games. So I think Joey's trying to do that to psych everyone else. So don't let Joey psych you out. Joey's undefeated right now. He's on a massive tear. And Joey, oh, again, like one of the all-time best players. Like I absolutely love Joey, and he's honestly super great. Now we get into some big guns right here. I want you all to know that there was a lot of teams that go in here from 8 to 2. These are all 9 out of 10s that only had one small issue that caused them to not put them in the top 10. Top 10. A 10 out of 10. So, who of the nines was one of the least valued nines? Coming in at number 8 on the rankings is my main man, Seabad, aka Chase, coach of your Detroit City Steel Wings. And I love Chase's team. He has got Sneasler, Rillaboom, Heatran, Hatterene, Suian, Zoroark, Inteleon, Mandibuzz, Rhyperior, Glastrier, and Electivire. Terra happens to be in the Inteleon and the Rhyperior, with being held pricey, they were only level 2. Water and Grass, which I think is actually pretty solid for Inteleon. And then Fairy and Water for the Rhyperior. So I don't know how I feel about water, but water's really good for reliable defensive options here. There's actually two solid modes that Chase can kind of go in here. There's a Trick Room mode with Hatterene with Glacier, which I think is really great, and also Rhyperior. I love the grassy terrain core that he has, which is really great. He does have Defog and Magic Bounce, which is really solid options here. And everything about Chase's team is super solid. Like, I'm personally a believer of the Glastrier pick. I love Glastrier. It was one of my top 3 best Pokemon on a team I drafted for a Wi-Fi. I kid you not. It was one of my top 3. Obviously, Rhyperior was broken and Terra allowed it with my KO leader. But absolutely amazing Pokemon. I am a massive Electivire fan. I don't care what anyone says. The hate on Electivire needs to stop. He's a good Pokemon. Sneasler, obviously one of my all-time my favorite Hisuian Pokemon, and one of my all-time favorite Pokemon I ever got a chance to use. Just a solid Pokemon. Hisuian Zoroark is just so great. Normal Ghost, like with a team like this, it's so scary to try to figure out what the heck you're gonna do. When you see Zoroark, once you see Zoroark, you have to think like everything is Zoroark, which is funny. You gotta put on your big boy pants to be able to make the play to guess if that's Zoroark or not. So I think that's really cool. I think Chase has good defensive counterplay. I think his offensive capabilities are great. The only real nitpick I had with Chase's team compared to other teams and also compared to why I ranked it as a 9 out of 10, his hazard setting is extremely limited. He has 2 stealth rockers and that's it. I think this team would have really benefited more from spikes. I think spikes looked insane with this build. I think 1 or 2 spikers would have been really great to have on this team, which would have been really, really great. But other than that, I love Chase's team. It's super great. I think it's one of his arguably best teams he's ever drafted. Because of how well it works for the great pivot momentum, which is really great. Healing with support from the Hatterene as well. It's just overall a solid team, and I absolutely love it. And I really hope Chase does well. And I really hope to see Terra up here tear it up again once again. Absolutely love that Pokemon. And I want to see Glastrier get a sweep. I want to see that Glastrier get a sweep, man. Coming in at number 7 is going to be the man himself with the biggest hammer known to mankind. J. Ricky has Meowscarada, Iron Treads, Keldeo, Porygon Z, Uxie, Comfey, Sinister, Rotom Heat, Hisuian Quillfish, and Hariyama Harimama. And his Terra captains being the Sinistra and Hariyama. Sinistra, which can be evolved in Fairy and Steel, which I think are the two best Terra typings it needs in the full entire game. And then Hariyama, which can be Fairy Steel, which I think Steel, little bit of a weird choice, but I understand the merits. Fairy, obviously a fantastic Terra type choice. And then Water, which is very interesting. I would like to see where J. Ricky goes with Water. But team overall, I love a couple of these Pokemon. Like Meow, my beloved. I love Meow to death. Sinistra has been on a massive tear throughout the entirety of the seasons that it's been in. Brazilian Quillfish, obviously a kind of an annoying defensive pivot for a lot of teams. Hariyama's the truth. I don't care what anyone else says. That Pokemon is goaded fighting type. I think like Jay Ricky really paired his defense with his offense perfectly. The only thing about Jay Ricky's team I did not like was I don't like the option of Meow having a second spike user, and I don't think Meow really likes enjoying using spikes. I think Quillfish can fill that role a bit better. I also think you're never clicking T spikes with a Meowscarada, in my opinion. So I do think then that kind of limits the hazard because other than Quillfish, they only have two Stealth Rockers, and one kind of really doesn't want to run it. It's not like the worst thing if it runs it. Same with the other one too. Like Uxian and Treads, they can both reliably run rocks, but one likes running a lot more utility and one likes running a lot more offense. Or kind of like a utility move of sorts. But overall, Jay Ricky really paired all the names like the Keldeo with flip turns, really good momentum. Voltwitch with U-turn, like the first like like the first three Pokemon with great momentum options. Overall, there's just a solid momentum across the entirety of the board. I think the bulk panned out perfectly well with the offense. Again, the only thing I think is a little limited is that some of these Pokemon are not going to be able to do things that I think Jay Ricky did want to do in my opinion. I also think the fact that rapid spin is the only way you remove hazards on this team is a little bit of a concern because you're going to be forcing yourself to bring spin on treads every single week, which I think is a little bit of a daunting thing. But I think it's not going to be the biggest deal in the world. I just think overall, I mean, you could have had a maybe a slightly better option. Maybe who knows? I think speed tiers also look really solid. Bulk is solid. Terra captains are pretty solid as well. I think there's just a lot of great things about Jay Ricky's team. I think just compared to the other teams that tied at 9, Jay Ricky's was just above Seabad's, but wasn't really above all the other ones I saw that were 9 and above, or like 9 ranked coaches. So, but overall, Jay Ricky's also a really cool dude. If you've not checked out Jay Ricky, please check him out. He's honestly a down to earth guy. I actually love his he's just talking. He's really great. And he's just been very educational lately with some of his videos. Which, if you really want to be educated, Jay Ricky's a great person to watch. So please do definitely go check him out. Coming up at number 6 on the list, just barely missing the top 5, is going to be Daria and the Minneapolis Meowscaratas. Still slightly concerned that it's winking at me. But Daria has a really interesting team here. She has got Iron Bundle, Zapdos, Ogerpon, which can Terra, King Gambit, Donphan, Visiting Milotic, Colossal, Spidops, and Mischievous. Colossal can also Terra into Fairy, Water, and Grass. I think those are the three perfect typings. Grass might be a little bit of a stretch there, but Fairy and Water, perfect typings. Now, Terra Ogerpon, in my opinion, is a weird choice. And I really don't like it as a Terra Captain. But in this type of format, if it's allowed to do so, it's busted because it gets free speed boost every time it comes in, I think. Plus, it's the only Ogre Pawn that can run an item when it's Terra. So, Choice Band sets, Choice Scarf sets, Life Orb sets, SD variants go insanely hard, and Joey actually really desperately wanted this Pokemon, and he literally got signed 2 picks before him, which I think is pretty funny. But Ogerpon, I think it has a lot of potential here. Obviously, Bundles, which is a really good fun pick. Absolutely love Zapdos. One of my all-time favorite electric types in draft. King Gambit, obviously, a really good solid Pokemon. Donphan is always a good reliable spinner. Fizzidippy, good bulk. Milotic is really good bulk. Colossal spin and hazards. Spite up is Heiser, and there's just a Mischievous. I mean, it's a Mischievous. Um, I partially didn't really like Daria's team too much. I like the majority of it. I think the only thing about it is that it leans a little bit towards the defensive side, and also I think it just I don't know. It's a little too defensive for my liking because when you just look at Zapdos, all you think is a really good defensive pivot with Volt Switch. Like the momentum aspect of this team is really good, is pretty decently good here as well. I think the fact you have two spinners is really great. With some decent enough reliable hazard setting, which is also really great, and just really good fat bulk with things like the Fez, the Cole, the Don Fan, the Zapdos. I just think it's a little bit too defensive for what I look at here. The offense is a little lackluster in just the bundle, Ogerpon, and King Gambit. Like, don't get me wrong, Don Fan can be offensive as a breaker, and then obviously Zapdos can be offensive on the special side. But I don't know, just something about being a little bit too defensive kind of just knocked it down a little bit from my top five. But I absolutely think Daria is one of the most like not given enough attention coaches. Like I feel like she is so good at the game that I think a lot of people need to see her talents. Like she went double. I think she had a double horse form. I think one time. I could be wrong, but she had Terra last year and she went on a tear with that. She had an amazing game against Alex, aka Lindsay Bennett, where it came back to so many mind games of Thunderclap from Raging Bull. Like one of the best finishes to a draft game I saw ever saw and just and she was willing to wear a Pikachu onesie for everyone on stream on the videos. Like she's such a great person, great spirit, and I actually love everything about her. So that is Daria's team. Now we get into the top five. These so two through five are obviously nine from ten, and these were like arguably okay. These were teams that were so butting headed into each other that I think were really good against each other, but had the one thing that the other team could do better of. So coming in at number five, this will be unfortunately his last season of the PPL for right now, and his last draft league of 2024. Which thankfully, by the time he takes his break, it'll be September slash October, pushing November. So he's going to take only a small break from draft league, not a major long break, but a nice small break at least that he definitely deserves after everything he's had to go through within this year for all his draft league stuff and everything going on with his own country and everything in his personal life. So I'm happy that Uzi's going to take a nice vacation after he finishes one. But of course, he can't finish this without winning another championship, especially in the league where he made his return. He needs to finish the PPL story and he's going to do it with this team. We got my main man Uzi and the Thunderclap Titans here with the Gouging Fire Enamorous Incarnate, Team Louis the Fifth, Alamola, Serena, Galarian Slowbro, Kilowatt, or informally as known as Uni. Uni's the bug. I had to do that one time. It was fun. Lucario, Froslass, and Zangoose. With Terracats being the Galarian Slowbro and Knocked and the Kilowatt, I almost said Knocked Out. I'm really tired apparently. With Poison and Fairy for the Slowbro and Flying and Ground for Uni. So, Gouging Fire, I don't care what anyone says, it does not need Sun to be broken. Sun with it is broken, yes, but it does not need to be. I have 6-0 lead with this Pokemon. This Pokemon was my kill leader the very first time I ever drafted this Pokemon. It is busted. It is broken. It is insanely difficult to beat. I love this thing. Enamorous, I think is a really good pair with it. I think it really pairs perfectly well with this Pokemon as well. Besides the massive rock weakness, but overall, it's a very good special breaker to pair with this Pokemon. I think Team Lu, fantastic hazard setting Pokemon to pair with this team. And also, don't sleep on how offensive Team Lu can be. Aloe is fat. I don't really like it. Serena, I think, is a kind of an underrated grass type in draft league. I think a lot of people do not give Serena a lot more respect than it kind of deserves. Galarian Slowbro, which we kind of waited until we got to this point before I discussed it. Quick Claw is once again allowed. They did not learn their lesson after Joey won the first season with this. Then again, the person he cheesed mostly with it kind of deserved it. If you know, you know. But I think Quick Claw, it does make it like 60% of the time that you are going first. So could be good, could be bad, who knows? Uh Obviously Huey is a Terra Captain. Goated Mon. Absolutely strong Mon. It is one of the best Terra Captains in the entire draft league scene, in my personal opinion. Lucario, would have loved to seen that Terra, honestly. I think it would have been really strong there. Frostlass, a solid Spiker, which is really great. And Zangoose, which definitely is something you have to respect. You have to respect Zangoose at all times because if you do not respect that Zangoose, it is going to crush you. I would know. But overall, I love Uzi's draft. I think the only thing about Uzi's draft that I kind of took note compared to the other three drafts is that I do think the hazard setting is limited. Like you have one stealth rocker, and then you have two users of spikes. Obviously, Team Blue can always run rocks every single week, which is not the worst thing in the world, and Frostlass can always run spikes every single time. But there are some weeks you may not want to even do both of them as hazard mon. I think Serena's your only rapid spin support is not that bad. I think it's decent enough. I think they're with their being a potential trickery mode with that slow bro Tinglu. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. You got strong up priority options as well with having Ice Shard from Frostlass, the priority from Lucario and Zangoose. I think just overall really good physical wall breakers, really good special wall breakers as well. I think overall Uzi drafted probably one of his best teams, and it's really fitting that he drafts one of his best teams because it's one of his favorites. So just a bunch of his favorites from when he's sending his draft analysis. And a team of favorites is always really great. So I'm really excited to see Uzi kind of come in and just hopefully be able to walk away with a championship before he takes his break, his vacation that he's definitely earned. And Uzi's my guy. He's one of my main guys I like to watch. It's definitely thanks to rewatching from PBL when he came back that I actually became a subscriber to Uzi and wanted to watch it. And I've never looked back on it. It's one of the best things I ever did. So love Uzi, and I really hope he does well this season. Coming in number 4 is one of the arguably best draft league coaches in the game in Vepsis, coach of your Helsinki Dragons, my little Dinos. I love Vepsis' intro so goddamn much. Every time he goes like, "What's up, my little Dinos? Vepsis here." I love that. It puts a smile on my damn face every single time he does that. I don't know if it's because of his voice. I don't know if it's because it's just the way he does the intro. I don't know why. It's just so awesome. I love Vepsis to death. And Vepsis has very much a Vepsis team. He's got Tornadus, T, Galarian, Slowking, Mienshao, Hydreigon, Swampert. Wait, this is looking like Gen 8 to me. He's got Hydrapple, Diancie, Fortress, Staraptor, and Abominable. Terracaptor being the Hydrapple and the Staraptor. Now, I do think there's a little bit of some weirdness here, like double flying types is a little bit weird here, but I don't think it's the worst thing because one of those can tear into a normal type, and it's primarily drafted for a normal typing, if anything. Hydrapple, Fairy, and Steel. I think arguably probably the two best Terra types you could have asked for. I think there could have been some cases for potentially water or maybe some other typings, but I think Fairy and Steel, perfect typing choices there. I think they're really good. Doesn't stop that poison weakness, but it's pretty decent nonetheless. Staraptor is something I have not seen with Terra a lot. And this is a Pokemon I personally want to try with Terra. I think it's busted, broken with Terra. Reckless Double Edge, Reckless Freightbird. Name a damn switch it. You can't. And I want to see the Crabominal pop off here. With having the Trick Room Chili Reception strat with Galarian Slowking for Crabominal, I think is really great. Another Trick Room option with Deancing. I think hazards wise, Swampert for rocks every single week seems really great. Deancey can be spikes every single week. And then Fortress can just do whatever he wants, or Fortress can be spikes and whatever, and then Deancey be a more setup point. I think hazard setting is pretty decent. Removal just being your Fortress is a little concerning. I don't remember if Staraptor has default, and if it does, then it's not the worst, but it's not great. Defensively, this is a really good defensive build. I think offensively as well is a really good offensive build. Even the stealth rock option with Hydreigon itself as well, which is never going to really be a thing, but if it is, it's not that bad. I think Vepsis has a well-rounded team. I think the only thing about the team that made me not like it so much that it was like in the number 2/number 1 team, maybe even the 3 team, was I felt like it was a little bit more slower. I think his only fast things being the Torn, the Mienshao, the Staraptor, and the Hydreigion's a little concerning, but I believe in Bepsis. He's arguably one of the best draft league players in here, and I am so pumped for. Oh, I didn't really say this with Joey, but Joey versus Mountay and Vepsis versus Joey are going to be my two favorite games of the entire season. I'm sorry. I mean, I watched Joey and these guys a lot, and these guys are in split divisions. for Scarlet Division, the only two games I'm so looking forward to watching, obviously Mephisto and Joey as well, but primarily Joey versus Epsis and Mountain versus Joey are been dream matches I've been wanting to see for God knows how long, and I'm gonna finally get to see those matches. I am so pumped, and I'm really looking forward to seeing Vepsis take on Joey. I know Vepsis is looking. I know for a fact he's gonna be looking forward, and I know Mountain is also gonna be looking forward to this. And I think the fans are finally gonna get to see some dream matches that finally deserve to happen. So I'm really excited for that. Coming in at number three, he was so good at the game, he drafted his team backwards and ended up being number third best team overall. We got my main man, Matthew drafts, Dr. Slacking, and Dog. Um, they have got the Houndstone, Exegol, Galarian Zapdos, Tyranitar, Gastrodon, Skarmory, Amoonguss, Whimsicott, Suicide Typhlosion, and Trapinch. Now, take that order and reverse it. That's how he drafted. I kid you not. Terra Trapinch was his first pick. He did make transactions, though. He did state that. But otherwise, he pretty much drafted the team from the worst to the best. Or best be worse, whatever way you want to go with it. Terra Captain being the Gastrodon, Student Type Illusion, and Trapinch. Trapinch can Terra into Ground, Steel, Bug, and Fighting type. Fighting type, don't understand that. Ground, okay. Steel, partially don't get that, but I can understand. But Bug for first impression, goaded. Consumes Evolution, which can tear into Fire and Ghost, which I think Dual Stab is obviously its best two Terra typings, and then having Fairy, which I think it's its third best typing. Gastrodon, which can tear into Steel, Poison, Rock. Poison makes sense for no being toxic, obviously, and also being on the secondary grounded poison if necessary. Steel for a defensive option, a little bit concerning, but not the worst thing. But can we talk about that Terra Rock? Because you guys see he has a Sand team. Terra Rock for depth boost and a water immunity. That is so goaded, and I want to see that pop off. Even though he's got the wrong Gastrodon sprite, it's supposed to be blue, not pink. Blue is the better one, obviously. But I think Matt's team is really awesome. I think it pairs perfectly between offense and defense is really great. Last respects Houndstone being legal is so disgusting. If you don't bring a normal type or you let your normal type get bodied down by everything else, there's just no way you beat this thing. Dark types, like I had a Roy Moon, which is not the best example. Like one time, it got one shot by a non-banded Houndstone, mind you. But granted, it was the only Pokemon left alive. But still, Houndstone is busted with last respects. And the fact that it's allowed to do it again, Extra, what am I two, besides Dracovish, best Pokemon I've ever used in Draft League. And it was no surprise in the PDA why it was one of my best Pokemon. I thought the kill leader of the PDA. It's such a fantastic Pokemon. As a Steel type, it's a little interesting because it's more so a Ground type, if anything. Galarian Zapdos, love me some Zapdos, man. He is super good. T-Tar, I'm not gonna lie to you, he's a trash sand setter. You're better off with Hippowdon. Yeah, that's right. I said that. I really did said that. And now I have one person unsubscribed from this video because they love T-Tar. But you know what? It's okay. I'm just kidding. Don't unsubscribe. Please stay subscribed. It's awesome. Gastron, really good defensive option as well. Skarmory, it's okay. Amoonguss, a really decent defensive poison, which is really good. His mascot and favorite Pokemon of all time. He says he's never got a chance to use in Gen 9 yet, so he's still hoping it's good. And I pray for him it's still good because it would be pretty weird to be the Cosmo Whimsicots and then not like Whimsicott and then have to change your entire team name again. His student type version is super strong here. I think Max team's overall really great. He has a lot of great hazard. He has really good defensive synergy and really good offensive synergy. The only thing that stopped him from being number two slash number one was I do think the offense is pretty much limited to like three slash four Pokemon because Hearthstone in some weeks might not even be offensive and might be a fluffy set. So it can be a good defensive counterplay because you really want Sand to kind of take full advantage of a lot of things here. Plus, we're fortunate to be Sand Rush to not be able to take the Cap Sand, which I think is really great. But Drill can just really punish through a lot of teams. Like again, compared to the next team we have here, I think that next team could have definitely taken advantage of a lot of things that would have beaten down Matt's team. But overall, Matt's team is really solid. As a sand team enthusiast, I think he drafted a really great sand team, even though he has T-Tar, which is a terrible Pokemon. Terrible Pokemon as a dark type and a sand set. As a Pokemon as itself with Terra allowed potentially, which if this thing could Terra, I'm surprised it didn't Terra this thing. But then again, Gastronomy Terra Rock. That seems more fun. But coming in number two, it's my guy. He's that guy. He's that guy. The number two and the last ranked 9 out of 10 coach that I had is Num Nexus in the Toronto Titans. I love Nexus. He is one of the best players to watch, and he is one of the most funniest guys you'll ever meet in your life. Just to quote one of his famous quotes he had the Oxus Speak, Quavel, Scizor, Gengar, Sandy Shocks, Volcanion, Regidrago, Rubonic, Ramble, and Viblion. His Terra captains being the Gengar, yes, I said Gengar, and Viblion. Now, I do think there's one problem with Nexus's draft, but we'll talk about that problem in a second. I love everything about Nexus's draft. The Oxus Speed is so underrated. I think a lot of people do not respect the Oxus Speed as much as they should have. Addison was a big reason why you got to respect the Oxus Speed. I feel like I showed you had to really respect it because I did a dual dance store power set that really just kind of cooked people. Quaquaval, goaded Pokemon, one of the best Pokemon in Gen 9 draft. Not the best starter, but in terms of draft league, is arguably tied for the best starter. Sidor is fantastic, a really good defensive option, while still being really good offensively, and defog support along paired with Rapid Spin. Terra Gengar, which I cannot believe that they allow this thing to Terra. It is only one type, but still, it's gonna be Terra Ghost, which honestly I think was the best Terra choice there. Like you two shot everything and not one shot everything with Terra Ghost. So I think that's really good. Sandy Shock's a fan favorite of mine. Would have loved to see him tear a little bit there, but it's okay. Volcanion, I'll see another fan favorite. Reggie Drago's that guy. He's that guy. I love this guy. I don't care what people say. He's broken. He's broken. He's honestly amazing. Brute Bonnet, weird choice for another ground resist, but in the dark type, but we'll see how it goes. Gramble, very interesting fairy, but there probably were not a lot of great fairies left on the board. But it's got some good utility. And then Terravillion, which can tear into a fighting ground and flying type. Tinted Lens with fighting and ground is very interesting, but flying. Let's talk about that flying typing right now. Excuse me, by the way. There are going to be some compound ice strats potentially as well, and just slamming people down to the ground. I want Nexus to pop off of this Biblion, man. And I think he has two solid captains that can be one cannot be brought as a captain and one can be a captain, and then be vice versa, where one may not be brought and the other can just shine as a captain. It's just super strong here. He has two solid removal options. He might have three if Vivian is defog, but that's not going to count as a defogger. The only thing about Nexus is draft. He does have two spike setters, and he has two stealth rockers. The problem is they're both Dio and Sandy Shocks. So and I really don't think the Extra Speed needs to be a hazard bot Pokemon. I don't think it needs to. I think it's perfectly fine as not being a hazard bot. Like, if you feel like you want to fit Stealth Rocks or Spikes on it, fine, and then Sandy Shocks can do the other thing as well. I just think the hazard setting is a little weak. That's just my only thing about Nexus's team I didn't like. It was the kind of little weak hazard setting in my opinion, but everything else about Nexus's team I absolutely love, and I really would love to see Nexus finally make playoffs and have a shot at making a championship run. He's had so many opportunities, and he's literally been one loss away every damn time from making it, man. He's also gotten very unlucky for the majority of the seasons that he's been in as well. So I want this to be Nexus's time. It is time for Nexus to finally get there, man. And then the number one coach, the number one ranked team for PPL this season at season three, and it was very close. If this was a nine, this would have been tied for Nexus. But there's a reason he got a gold star. I don't think that was terrifically timed on that. But we have one Z Benet, aka Alex, and he takes the cake for me as the number one team because of Munchlax. I'm kidding, no, there's not. There's Munchlax. I think this is one of the best rain teams assembled. And there's a lot of really great ways you can look at this. So, first off, fantastic hazard support between the Garchomp and Toedscool, along with the T-Spike support for Galarian Legion. I think both mons play these roles perfectly well. I think the option potential spore as well is really great.
Good, solid removal as well, with having, I believe, Defog on the Galarian Weezing, Rapid Spin on two Pokemon, which is really great. His Terra Captains are some of the strongest. Not the Toucannon, but Toucannon, I want to see that work. But Raichu plus Floatzel, amazing Terra Captains. Electric, kind of can see the reason why because of Thunder. But other than that, perfect Terra type choices. And I think the perfect Terra type choices for Floatzel as well. And I want to see Floatzel pop off, man. Floatzel in Rain is just broken. And I finally think we're going to finally see some shining here for Floatzel to start really show himself off here. He was already doing his best to show off for Ellie in P4G. So I want to see this damn Floatzel punch people in the face with his weird flipper fist things. Basket Legion, also another Pokemon that can work as an adaptability user, but also as a swift swimmer, which I think is really dangerous under this type of condition. I think Galarian Weezing, pair along with Iron Hands, fantastic defensive synergy right there. Defensively, the team's a little bit of a weaker side, but it's not terrible. I love the offensive setting on this team. I love some of the momentum options they have on this team between flip turn, U turn, volt switch. It's fantastic, and I think Alex really hit it out of the park. The only way this team did not get a perfect 10 from me was because it's Pelipper. Pelipper sucks. Politoed's right there, but Politoed was probably sniped, so it's okay. It's okay. But overall, Alex's team, my personal favorite. Onesie's team, I guess you can call him there, probably my favorite team in this entire season. And he did something similar like this last time too, but I think that was for the D League, maybe, or was it season two? I don't remember off the top of my head. But regardless, love this team. I love every single one of these coaches. They are going to be some really fun battles. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this nearly 2 hour long video of me talking about these teams. Definitely check out Joey's channel because Joey's going to be doing a stream potentially today, later tonight, on kind of ranking these teams as well. So definitely check out Joey's stream for that. With that being said, though, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you to all the PBL fans that have watched this video. And if any of the coaches watched this, I hope you guys did enjoy. And just know that I love every single one of you, and I did not want to rank you guys either as low or as high as I had to, but someone had to do it, man. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching. Again, check out everyone in the description down below. And with that being said, I'll see you all in the next video. Peace out, everybody. Bye.